what are 3 things that very successful people run every day that helps them be successful?
They get their ass out of bed.
You and I both struggled with that.
Oh my God. I still struggle with it.
So do I. I don't think people believe me. It is a thing every day of my life.
Every day of my life.
It's such a trip.
Well, I understand why, for me anyway. I don't know the reason why it's hard for you, but there are levels of reasons why it is so hard to get out of bed for me and why you have to get your ass out of bed. And I'll explain why it's important in a second, but first I want to explain why it's actually difficult for me. So number one, from a physiological standpoint, it was very helpful for me to learn that your cortisol levels are their highest when you first wake up in the morning. And so cortisol being the stress hormone, it's also something that can then flood your body with a sense of like worry or heaviness or overwhelm. And so knowing that that was just a fact in terms of what's happening in your body was helpful. Second, for me personally, part of my childhood trauma was having a incident where, somebody did something to me in the middle of the night. And that encoded an experience in my body that is triggered by waking up. Because at the age of, I guess I must have been like 9, I had an experience where I woke up one morning and an older kid had climbed into my bed and done something. And the second I woke up, Tom, I was in full alarm state. Fight or flight kicked in. I disassociated and I knew something bad had happened. And then I had a second response, which is, I did something wrong.
Right.
And so, you talk a lot on the show about habits and how habits have 3 parts: the trigger, the pattern, the reward. Waking up in the morning is a trigger, Tom, for my body to remember this experience of feeling something's wrong. So that's the second reason. And the third reason is because I have fucking amazing sheets and my bed is super comfortable. And my husband used to be next to me, but he now gets up at like 5:45. He just rolls right out of bed. And I love to just stay in that bed, Dom, under those sheets. It's so cozy. It's so snuggly. It's absolutely amazing. And so that's why it's hard for me. I don't freaking feel like getting up. And then on top of it, and you and I both know this, that an object that is resting will stay resting unless there is a force that acts upon it to get it to move. And so it is always hard for me, and how I've resolved this is by basically realizing that there are a few things that I will never feel like doing. I will never feel like unloading the dishwasher. I will never feel like folding clean clothes. I will never feel like cleaning that damn cat box or picking up the dog poop in the yard.
Yeah.
And I don't ever feel like getting out of bed. And I still have to do it.
It's interesting. So I think for me, my cortisol levels are too low.
Oh.
So whatever it is that gets people out of bed from a physiological level, I don't have that. So I've always felt, to me, it feels like the neurochemistry of sleep is slow to be flushed out of my system. Maybe it's just that the cortisol doesn't pump enough. And so getting out of bed just seems like this Herculean task, because even if there's something I'm excited to do, I find myself still wanting to lay in bed. And then the whole warm and cozy thing, yeah, that goes a long way. Like even now, I will, if I'm sleeping alone, like Lisa's traveling right now, so I'm sleeping alone. So I always wake up before Lisa. So I can't turn the AC off. I need it to be cold when I sleep.
Now, how cold do you keep your bedroom?
68 degrees.
So I keep mine between 66 and 68, and that's also part of the problem. The bed is warm.
Yep.
And it's like climbing into an ice pack to throw those sheets
Correct.
off. Yes.
So I give myself 10 minutes to get out of bed.
10 minutes?
So yeah. That for me, going from 4 or 5 hours to 10 minits was like, oh my God.
Well, that is a huge thing.
Yeah, for
so
me,
what do you
like
do
10
in
minutes
those 10
perfect.
minutes?
I try not to fall back asleep is the honest answer. So I when I wake up, even though I've woken up naturally because I don't use an alarm.
You don't use an alarm.
I'm like, like I wake up rough. Like Lisa, in the beginning of our relationship, it was really almost contentious because I was so grumpy in the mornings. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like whatever the chemistry is of sleep, I have a hard time shucking it off. And I remember I heard a joke one time, I'm gonna totally bastardize this, but the guy was like, to all you morning people, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, I don't even want to talk. Like, what are you people going on about? You're so happy, you're so smiling. And I was like, yes, that's exactly how I feel. So everything just feels when I wake up. So anyway, I give myself 10 minutes to get out of bed.
And so when you're in bed,
Yep.
are you thinking about something? Are you looking at the ceiling? Are you
No,
like,
I'm
what are
under
you
the
doing?
covers. So this would, I think, surprise everybody. I sleep completely bundled up under the covers.
Like with the pillow over your head?
Not the pillow, but the blankets.
Oh, see, I put pillows over
Pillow
my head and I make a
weighs
little
too
breathing
much.
hole right here.
That
It's like a
would-
safety thing, I
Yeah,
think. I'm hiding.
I couldn't have that on my face. On my body, that would feel nice, but not on my face. So I'm under the covers.
Yeah.
And now, this isn't true historically, but for the last probably 2 years, I sleep with a book playing in
With
my
a who?
headphones. A book playing.
While you're sleeping?
While I sleep the
Why?
entire night. It is incredible.
What?
And this isn't one that I necessarily recommend, but if people struggle to stay asleep, so I fall asleep easily. I have a hard time staying asleep. So I will
Okay.
wake up 3 times a night, every single night. The third one being the final time I wake up.
Yep.
And I have to switch my headphones out so they don't die. And I have 3 sets of headphones. So headphone 1, I fall asleep, and that's in-ear. Headphone 2, in-ear. Headphone 3, over the ear.
You sleep with headphones. So are you on your back?
Yeah. But
Wow.
it is unbelievably comforting. I can't even tell you.
Is it the same book?
Well, no, it changes once I finish the book.
Okay.
But I'll read it in these little increments because I have to keep rewinding it. And don't worry, we will get to the other 2 things that amazingly successful people do. But yes, so it's the same book
Okay.
until it's done. I read it in these tiny little increments. It's a specific kind of book.
What kind of book?
It has to be a book like, if you ever read like a biography of Lincoln, which happens to be what I'm reading now, and they'll spend like 17 pages on what the grass was like in his front yard. And so it's like, you don't have to like really scrutinize every sentence. You can sort of drift in and out. And so what ends up happening is I drift and then I'm gone. And I'll wake up, and let's say I started on chapter 2,
Yeah.
I wake up and it's like chapter 9. So I'm like, okay, I know to go back to chapter 2, and then I fall asleep again, and then I wake up again, I go back to usually chapter 2, and then I'll sleep. So when I wake up, I've got the book still playing. So then I'm like, well, I'm interested. I'll turn off the AC so it starts warming up. I stay under the blankets. So I start, and I'll even pull another blanket over me so I start getting too warm.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, cool, my 9 minutes and 42 seconds are up. I need to, because I have a rule. I have to be standing up before the 10th minute hits.
Okay.
And so I'm up out of bed before the 10th minute hits. But that has worked like a charm for me.
Wow. This is very complicated. I'm just sitting here about the management that you
amazing.
have to do around this. But but I think that's the most important thing about advice is everybody's looking for the silver bullet when in fact it's got to work for you.
Yeah.
That would never work for me. I'm already starting to think about, well, I sleep on this ear, and what about the headphones?
Yeah.
And I'd forget to charge them, and then I'd be awake, and
you
I'd be
have to have
staring
a
at the
system.
ceiling, and
Yep.
so that's fascinating. One of the things that I also got from what you were saying is that because of the cortisol, like flying through my system, and because I am somebody that has had a very dysregulated nervous system, meaning I have sort of lived life with the accelerator on edge, that when I would wake up and I would feel that wave of like being on edge, it had a very weird effect of not motivating me to get out of bed, but pinning me there. And ironically, intellectually, I know, and this is one of the reasons why it's important to get up, because if you can get up, you can start moving. And if you start moving, you can keep moving. And as you move, the chemistry changes and your mood shifts. And within 5 minutes, you feel different, even if it's just like a little incremental bit of difference. Even though I know that, the feeling in the body was so heavy that I thought I'll just lay here and hopefully it'll go away, and it just gets worse. And that's why I asked you what you do in those 10 minutes, because one of the reasons why I say get out of bed is because most people reach for their phone. And most people win the battle for success, for dreams, for mental health, for happiness, for confidence in the first 30 seconds of being awake, because they reach for the phone and they immediately direct their attention at other people's lives.
Yeah.
And so that's
so
why
crazy,
I
man.
say, I know nobody will, when I tell people, don't look at your phone, leave your phone out of your hand, and everyone's like, and then they go and do it. But if you just get out of bed immediately, you got a fighting chance to be awake enough to not do that.
Yeah.
And so I think most people, if they're struggling with being successful or happy or whatever, I guarantee you, you give your attention to social media or your phone before you've done the second thing. And so now we're on to the second thing, which is set a freaking intention for the day. Set a mark for what's one thing that matters to you. What is the one thing that you're going to make progress on today? And that one thing could be how you're going to show up with your family. It could be, today I'm getting to that gym, or it could be some project at work that you're going to move the needle on, or it could be some habit that you've learned on impact theory, that today is the day I'm going to do that thing that I learned from Tom, and you're going to do it. And it's so important for you to direct your mind that this matters to me, because your mind is paying attention. And if you set a little habit in place, and successful people do this, you have something that matters to you. Because the other thing about successful people is we're all fucking busy and we have a million things going on. And the second that we look at our phone, or we walk through the front door of our business, or we step into the kitchen, other people will now need you. And you will most likely spend the rest of your day, unless you have a huge staff and you've got amazing boundaries and you've got a lot of white space in your calendar, and that is not me, you will spend the rest of your day, Tom, reacting to everybody else's stuff.
Yep.
And so if you can get into the habit of going, today, the most important thing for me to make progress on is X, you have directed to your mind that this thing matters. Now, if you can actually inch it forward before you look at your phone, before you start your workday, before you start responding to everybody else, you will start to develop a superpower, because you will see yourself prioritizing what matters to you. And that's critical. So for anybody with a side hustle, do not be working on that thing just at night when you get home. Your dreams, your business, it deserves the first 10 minutes of the morning. And if you literally just lay like one brick on that path between where you are and where you want to go, that 10-minute of effort every single day on the thing that matters most to you, that changes everything over time. Because I think most people are struggling with the fact that you have all these things that you want to do, but your life is organized in the exact opposite of what is important to you. That you've let everybody else dictate how you spend your time. You've let everybody else kind of take over your day, and you haven't done the basics of waking up, get moving, think about what matters to you, and if you can, just inch it forward. You know, there's even research about this. I know you've talked about this too, the progress principle, which they've studied extensively at Harvard Business School, that when they look at very successful people and they ask them, okay, you know, what makes for a fulfilling week? And they were specific to work, but I think this applies more generally. What made for a fulfilling week for most people that are successful is I made progress on something that matters to me.
Yep.
I felt a sense of control and progress over the things that I care about. And so if you really are someone, and this used to be me for sure, where you feel like you're last on the list, you never have time to get to what's important, that everybody else's needs come first, that years keep going by and you're not seeing yourself make the changes that you want to make, or not make the money you want to make, or not launch that business or start that thing, take a look at the first 3 or 4 things you do in the morning and see where you put your attention, because I guarantee you, it is not aligned with what you actually care about. And so if you can grab that back, you can do the third thing. And the third thing for me is, it's sort of this combination, I call it aligned action. And that is that successful people act before they feel ready. They act like the person they want to be instead of the person that they feel like today. That they, you know, and you talk about this too. This is the philosophy that you believe in, which is behavioral activation therapy. Act like the person you want to become.
Can you give me an example of that?
Oh, yeah. So I'm launching a podcast. I've been thinking about, talk about not taking your own advice, okay? Most people don't know this, but I got my start in the media business. This was my first taste of the media business in 2008 by hosting a local call-in radio show on Saturday mornings in Boston, Massachusetts.
I did not know that.
Yes, I paid for my kids' braces by reading Invisalign ads for a dentist in Boston that I still go to. Shout out to Dr. Ronkin. He did not pay me to say that. That was a long time ago. And I loved that show, Tom. I freaking loved it. Why did I have a radio show? I'll tell you why. Because for those of you that have seen my first appearance here with Tom, this was the period in my life where Chris's restaurant was going off the rails. We were nearly $1 million in debt. There were liens on our house. I had lost my job. I needed money. That's why I had that job. It paid $25 an hour for 2 hours every Saturday. And I felt like the world's worst mom because every other parent was at town soccer. Somebody else, thank you to the Graces for driving our kids. They were taking our kids to soccer for us while I could go host this radio show and Chris was doing whatever he could to save the business. That show was a lifeline. I would talk to real people every single day. It made me feel connected to people. It gave me a sense of purpose. I loved the intimacy of it. And so and that show eventually grew and it became syndicated. And then I won something called the Gracie Award for my coverage of Trayvon's murder. Whoa. And that got CNN's attention. And they called me and said, hey, we would love to have you be a legal analyst here. And so that then got me on CNN. And ever since I left radio, I have missed it. And I've been wanting to get back to it. And in the back of my mind, especially after I wrote the 5-second rule, I kept thinking, I need to launch a podcast. I need to launch a podcast. I love podcasts. I need to do this. And it mattered so much to me. I was so drawn to it, Tom, that I think that oftentimes when the dream is such a call, the excuses match the desire for it, right? And it was never the right time. I just talked myself out of it over and over and over and over and over again. And so finally, 18 months ago, I literally woke up one morning, I had my own wake-up call, and I'm like, that's it. You're gonna let another 10 years go by unless you make a fucking decision to get started.
How'd you get started? So you decide you're gonna do it and take people into the weeds a bit.
Yeah, okay.
This is where I think people go off the rails. They're sitting at home thinking, yeah, I wanna start a podcast as well. And I wanna hear, because I know that you end up doing it on a way more professional stage. But walk people through who'd you call? Was it a relationship that you built 20 years ago? I want people to follow that.
Yeah, so
train.
First things first, I went to my friend Google. Honest to God, even though I know Tom and I know Lisa, I was too embarrassed to ask you because you guys are out here with all these millions of subs and you've been doing the show for a while. And same thing with Lewis. You and I have some amazing friends. And oftentimes I find that going to people that already seem like they're at the top of the top, that's intimidating because it magnifies, at least for somebody who's got a lot of insecurity like me, it magnifies the distance between where you are starting and where somebody is years down the road. Because part of your genius, Tom, is that it's easy to look at what Tom's built and forget the fact that this dude has been studying film since he went to USC for film school. This guy is a insanely successful entrepreneur that's bringing all of that sweat equity and learning to the table. This is somebody that's dedicated himself to years of figuring this out and sampling and editing. And so I personally find that when you go to somebody that's already there, it can be a little discouraging. So I went to Google and I'm like, how do you start a podcast? Honest to God, because I'm smart enough to know it's different than radio. And I didn't even know what equipment people have. I didn't know anything about, do you go to, how do you put a podcast up? Do you put it everywhere? I don't know. Is there a form that you put the title on and the captions and then do you send it somewhere? I know how to upload a video to YouTube. I know how to, but I don't know anything about this market. And so I went to Google. You're going to laugh at me, but I bought a course about podcasting.
Not laughing at all. Smart.
I studied a bunch of videos about the type of equipment that people bought. I then just started stalking people that are doing it. And I started to say to myself, okay, what does somebody that already has a podcast, what do they do that I'm not currently doing? And so the first step is obviously learn about it. identify a group of people that serve as what I call your lights on the path. And so lights on the path are people that are anywhere from 1 step ahead of you to 10 years ahead of you. And these are all people that can guide you forward if you study what they did. And most of them, by the way, we live in the most magical period of time. You have no fucking excuse for not walking toward what you want. I realize it may be harder for some of us with mental health issues. I realize that not everybody starts at the same starting line because of bias and all kinds of things that can happen to people. But the bottom line is, through your actions and attitude, you can create anything you fucking want. And look, I'm sitting here saying I've been wanting to do a podcast for 8 years, and for 6 years, I was nothing but excuses for why I couldn't get started. And then finally, I'm like, fuck it, I got to start. And so you start by Google the topic. Number 1, become a student of what you want to be first. That's the mindset. What can I learn? What are people doing that is calling to me? What are people doing that I don't like? And so as I started being a student of this, really important, that's why I say Google. Google is a search engine. Become a student of what you want to learn about or launch in your life. And there's a bazillion books, there's master classes, there's free videos, there's workshops. And what's so cool, people like Tom are unpacking this shit for you with people. And so you can also hear people's stories. And so I probably just immerse myself in it, Tom. And I'd say the first person that I called was Rich Roll. And Rich Roll is a really good friend of mine. And
amazing human.
Amazing human being. And he was really cute. I called and said, okay, I'm going to do this thing. What would you tell me, knowing everything you know, having been doing the podcast for 7 years? And, you know, interesting about Rich, that guy is an artist, incredible storyteller, amazing story, you know, personal story. His hands are in every aspect of that podcast. Like, that is Rich's gift to the world. And what he said to me is, he said, turn on a mic.
It's good advice.
Turn on a mic. Start recording shit. But I'm not ready. But I don't have the equipment. But I haven't done this. But Mel, if you want to do this thing, turn on the mic and start taping episodes and then listen to it. And they're going to sound like shit. And you're going to realize it's a hell of a lot harder than you think it is. And so here's the second thing. So number 1, become a student, right, of what you want. And even if you don't know people or you don't have a network that is, you know, like the one that you and I have built over time, you can still learn from people that you haven't met. Full stop.
Especially with YouTube. It's crazy.
It's incredible. And then you just reverse engineer it. And so what you'll do is, if you were to simply do this exercise, like, we're just going to stick with the podcast episode, but you could insert anything. How do I start a dry cleaning business? You could Google, I don't know how to do that, but I bet there's a video about it. How do I start a catering business? Do I need a commercial kitchen to do that? Like, all these things somebody has figured out, and they have put a video out, or they've written a blog post, or they've written a book, or they're doing a course right now on it. As you're a student, here's your assignment from Mel Robbins. Write down all the actions that you're learning about that people do. Oh, for podcasting, I got to learn how to edit audio. Oh, I got to learn about equipment. Oh, I got to understand all these platforms. Oh, I've got to listen to a ton of podcasts to understand what I like and what I don't like. Oh, I've got to record some. Oh, I've got to there's a bazillion things, right? And so keep that list handy, because every day you can wake up and look at that list, and there is your roadmap to what you want to create in your life. And what happens next is there will be something on that list that is the starting line for real, like when shit gets real. And for me, that was turning on a microphone, which I started doing about 6 months ago.
The fact is, there are going to be days where you got to clean toilets. We're all humans. And that's just a fact. And so also don't get discouraged when you have a string of toilet days. That's just what life is like. You can keep going forward. And so the other thing that I wanted to say is that for a lot of you that are watching this conversation right now, I know that you've kind of hit a plateau in your business, or you're struggling to kind of get to the quote next level. One of the things that I want to tell you is that, first of all, Peter and I believe in you. That's why we're here. The second thing I want to tell you is you're 100% capable of doing the actions that will take you to the next level. The third thing I want to tell you is that you know what those actions are. The problem is you're spending all your time thinking about those actions, and that's a trap. That's where your self-doubt comes in. And what Peter and I want you to do is we want you to, first of all, acknowledge that you know what to do, acknowledge that you don't feel like doing it, or that you're scared like I am about taking my business to the next level and expanding into events, and do it anyway. Literally, like that's the formula for success. You should give 0 fucks about how you feel. And you should really focus on what you need to do. Like, think about what it was like when you were a kid and your parents were so annoying because they didn't care about your excuses. They knew what you needed to do and they pushed you to do it. And so, Peter and I really want you to, first of all, feel the acknowledgement that you got this. Secondly, stop focusing on the shit you can't change and start focusing on the actions you can take and more positive thoughts, because it's really difficult to get to the next level when you're busy cheering against yourself.
Let's go back, and I want people to understand, because a lot of achievers, Mel, I've seen, they're so obsessed with the tactics. They're like, I don't need the motivation, I need business tactics. But they don't realize that a lot of the stuff that's holding them back, even if they had the tactics, is in their mind. So I'm glad you talk about this first, which is huge. Let's go back. So you're struggling. You're filed for bankruptcy. This is a couple years ago, and you're an 8-figure business. What was the steps? If someone is in that stage where they're struggling, they're frustrated, they don't feel like it, but they're maybe still taking action, but they're not at the level they're capable of. For you, do you remember the first couple steps when you were struggling on how you got out of it?
Yeah, so it all starts, it's so interesting because I just finished an interview with a group that are doing a movie about morning routines, Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning.
Oh, yeah.
And so it starts with your morning routine. And so, and here's why. So when I was stuck, and facing bankruptcy, and my husband and I were fighting, and I was unemployed, and his restaurant business was failing. So here you got this like trifecta of just doo-doo all over the place. This was his dream to have this business, and now it's failing as an entrepreneur. I lost my job after stepping into the media business. Just like one thing, fighting like crazy. And I had a terrible morning routine. I would hit the snooze alarm 5-6 times a morning. I would then mainline my phone and, read emails and surf social media. I would constantly eat bad food. The kids were always late for school. They were missing the bus constantly. It was like one decision after another that was horrible. Now, why was I making the decision to hit the snooze button 5 times? Because of my feelings. I felt overwhelmed. I felt terrified. I had tremendous anxiety. I felt like a loser. I had no confidence. I dreaded the day. All those feelings were driving my decisions. So, this is how I discovered the 5-second rule. It actually started as a simple hack in order to beat the snooze alarm. The alarm would go off. So I want to expand this moment, because I want you guys to understand the power of a 5-second decision. Your entire life, your entire business comes down to 5-second decisions, period. Do you make the phone call or not? Do you negotiate like a monster or not? Do you take the deal that sucks, or do you walk away from it or not? Like, these are the decisions that define your business, and they happen in 5 seconds flat. You either expand into your power or you shrink. That's what happens. And so for me, here I was hitting the snooze alarm, and I knew I needed to stop it, but I didn't know how. So I invented this little trick, because here's what happens. The alarm would go off, and in a matter of seconds, I would feel dread. I would think about bankruptcy. I would feel the anxiety come from my stomach. My heart would start to race. My throat would get tight. I'd start to sweat. I'd think about the day ahead and all of our problems. And I would immediately feel incapable. And I would shrink and hit the snooze. And that was all taking place like that. Just like when you look at the phone call, you look at that phone and you know there's a call you need to make for your business. You've been thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. If you think about it for more than 5 seconds, you will come up with a reason not to make that call. You will. That's how our minds work. And so I decided, holy shit, this is happening like so fast. I got to move faster before my mind can talk me out of it. And so the first morning I used it, I went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and stood up. The next morning when I used it, I was surprised it worked again. The next morning when I used it, I couldn't believe it worked again. And then I noticed this, and this is what I want you all to take away. Your mind is designed to protect you. The second you hesitate, and it could be the smallest thing, guys. It could be that somebody's telling you that the split on the deal is going to be 60-40, and your gut's like, what the? No, it's not. But if you hesitate and you start to go, oh, they're a bigger partner than me, and maybe I need this deal, you will, within 5 seconds, shrink, self-doubt will come in, and you will not own your power. But you can, if you move forward 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in that second, when you're like, wait a minute, 60-40, I don't think so. It's 50-50 or nothing, buddy. And you move, now you've interrupted the patterns that stop you, and you've taken control in a 5-second window. And you have also now developed this muscle where you're now starting to align action with instinct. Why is Jay-Z so successful? It's not because he sits around and he mainlines social media and he gives a hoot about what other people think. It's because he has an instinct, he goes for it. Why is Oprah so successful? Why is Steve Branson so successful? Why is anybody that you admire successful? It's not because they're lying in bed looking at social media. It's not because they sit around and doubt themselves. It's not because they eat a shit sandwich on a deal. It's because they've learned how to quiet the noise around them, to hear their instincts, and to move and lean into them. And that is the secret to your business. That's why you want to be an entrepreneur. It's not so that you can hide, it's so that you can expand. It's not so that you can live in fear of these phone calls. It's so that you can freaking pick up that phone and call anybody you want. That is your power. And I'm telling you right now, if you master this 5-second window, you win. And, look, Peter, it didn't even, so, how did I go? So now people are probably wondering, well, okay, fine. So you got up on time. How does that change things? I'll tell you how it changes anything. If you can master the ability to get up when you don't feel like it, that's the same thing as making a phone call when you don't feel like it. If you can master the ability to go to the gym when you're tired, that means you can work on that spreadsheet when you're tired. If you can master the ability to feel your emotions rise up at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, shut them down and speak to your spouse with respect, even though you're pissed, then you know how to manage your emotions in a business setting. So in 5-second windows, what you're doing is you're building the muscle of self-control. You're building the muscle of discipline. You're building the muscle of aligning your actions and your thoughts with the things that matter to you instead of letting your emotions trigger you and wig you out and take you off course. It's freaking amazing. So I would say, for those of you that feel stuck, take a look at your routine, because you have one in the morning. The first 30 minutes of your day are the most important because they set the tone. Do you get up on time? Do you make your bed? Do you spend the first 20 minutes planning your day and the one thing that's important to your business? Do you schedule the one thing you're going to do to make progress on your priority? Before anything else, don't look at your phone. Don't sleep next to your phone. That phone is crack cocaine. You do not need it. We have become the tool. That is supposed to be a tool for your business. Number 2 rule for you, do not put that freaking phone next to your bed. Do not do it.
I started with coaching maybe 10 years ago, but I lacked confidence in myself or what I was selling. And so I never made any money coaching. Okay. I just kept going to groups and like Brendan and some of those others. And I just kept going, thinking it was going to happen. Okay. Well, about the first of the year, I had a really, I was introduced to grief for the first time.
Okay.
And I just said, grief is wonderful about eliminating all the chatter around you. So I just said, okay, I'm stopping everything. So I quit every program I was in. I sat down and I say, okay, what do I like about my life? Well, I have a podcast. I've had it for 8 years, and it's always been about women in transition. And it's called Second Wind with Joyce. So I love doing that. So my natural inclination is to go into speaking because I like being in front of audience, telling the story. But my audience is still about the transformation, but because I have continued to age, so has my group that I want to support. And I see this group of 50s, 60s that go through reevaluating who they are, finding their identity. They've never found their identity because they inherited it. And now they're faced with, what do I do now? I've lost my partner. I've lost, who am I? So
Is that what happened to you?
no, I divorced when I was 50.
Who did you lose recently?
My ex-husband and my sister.
Okay.
So, anyway,
Are you
business?
What did you say, hon?
How do I make a business?
I don't get the sense that you want to be doing this. I get the sense, just hear me out.
Yep.
I get the sense that you feel like you should. And what I want you to really just hang with me for a second.
Yep.
I love personal development. If I didn't have a business around personal development, I would just constantly go to seminars and I'd listen to podcasts and I would consume it because I love it. It makes me feel human. It makes me feel connected to other people. It makes me, in moments, feel in touch with something larger in life. And there's something that is bigger than a podcast or coaching or speaking. And there's more of I just get the sense with you that there's more of a calling. And that's why it's not turning into a business. There is a desire to serve. There's a desire to support. There's a desire to connect. And what is coming up for me, maybe it's because my husband is going through this training, but he's going through the training to be a death doula.
Mm.
And I don't know if that's what you would do, but there's something like, to me, you love the podcast the most.
Mm-hmm.
What do you love about it?
Interaction with people, sharing the story. Their stories are all about how life is better after the trauma because of the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like sharing that message. So
I feel, I don't know. What's your reaction to what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with some of it. I agree that I have a bigger purpose. And I've started writing because somebody said to me, well, you're grieving. Why don't you write? And I went, duh. It had to come from outside of me. So I started writing. I'm enjoying that very much. So anyway.
Okay. Do you have to make money?
Be
honest.
No.
Okay. Now we're getting somewhere.
But let me tell you this. I've always, from childhood, money is a measurement to me.
Of what?
I'm making money.
Of what? What is money a measurement of?
Success.
Bullshit.
Well, it's for me, it's my belief.
I think you need to change your belief.
Well, maybe.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because you say you value it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet your actions don't tell me that you do. Your actions tell me that you value connection, and you value purpose, and you value making a difference.
Right.
I think somebody else made you feel like it wasn't successful, or what you're doing is not helpful or big enough if there isn't money attached to it.
That's probably true.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not fun to have money, and I'm not saying it's not fun to make money. I love making money. I love building shit. I love all that stuff. But I will never be able to coach you in how to make money if in your heart you actually don't care about it. And I don't think you do. I think that somewhere back in history, you got it in your head that you're only successful if you're making money. And that's horseshit. You're successful if you are happy with who you are, and if you are happy with the life that you're living. That is what success is. If you get to spend your days on a podcast, talking to people, making a difference, you are a very successful person, particularly if you don't have to worry about whether or not it makes money. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go to work on dismantling this notion of what a successful life looks like and what your worth is.
Yep.
You are wildly successful. Tell me why that's true.
Because I make a difference.
Fuck yes. That's right, Joyce. That's right. You focus on that, and you show up with that energy on that podcast, and you show up with that energy with the women you're talking to. And trust me, if money's supposed to fall out of the sky, it will land in your lap. There is a reason why you haven't done it. Because deep in your soul, you know that's not what matters. You know what matters is what you're already doing. And I want you to launch yourself into a new chapter where you honor that, and where you truly celebrate the fact that every day we have been given the gift of Joyce. Joyce has the ability to wake up every fucking day and make a difference in someone's life. Joyce has the ability to sit with people that are grieving and help them understand that grief is so important, because actually what you're present to is all the love that you feel. And Joyce has the ability to get people to talk about their trauma. And that's helping everybody. That is such a beautiful thing, Joyce. It is a gift that we have all been given, that you can do that.
Thank you.
What are you getting from this?
Oh, about tears. I always have tears. I'm just getting more permission just to sit back and enjoy life.
Yes.
And
Yes.
stay out of my head. Probably.
Yeah. You deserve to enjoy your life. I'm trying to learn that lesson too. And, suffering can become a habit. And it would be really wonderful if you could lead by example and enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Beautiful job, Joyce.
There's this, like you said, I feel most alive trying, creating, but it's almost like it takes me back to when you broke down your first TED Talk. Like, you're talking about how you're pacing and you're sweating, and I'm like, this was amazing to watch the behind the scenes brain, and then watching in real time, I was like, oh my gosh, I get it. Like, is that kind of what you're still doing, so to speak?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You refer to that TEDx talk, which was the first speech that I've ever given. And it's basically a 21-minute long panic attack. If you go back and look at it, ignore the 28 million views and realize that is I'm doing math, 13 years ago, 2011, that 10 years ago.
10, 11, yeah.
So I'm 43. I'm facing bankruptcy. There are liens on the house. My husband has dropped out of the restaurant, is basically struggling with alcoholism, and I'm hopping from job to pay our bills. And I've been asked to give a talk about how to change your jobs. I mean, talk about imposter syndrome. And so you look at my chest. About a minute in, I've got this raging chest rash that people have when they're anxious or they drink too much. I mean, I'm darting all over the stage like an idiot. I had no idea that would go anywhere. It was the first TEDx conference. It didn't go anywhere for a year. And then a year later, they started putting the TEDx talks online. And that would have been late 2012. And then it sat and went nowhere for another year. That would have been 2013. And it wasn't until the end of 2013 that it started to gain traction online, and that's when people started to reach out.
Wow, that's super cool. It's just cool to be able to peek into the mind of someone. It's almost like you unintentionally became successful, but not unintentionally. Like, it's this weird.
Well, our
cool
friend
way of
says I
having it.
became intentional despite myself. So I certainly probably made it harder than I needed to, but I didn't know any other way. I think that, if there are some lessons learned, it would be reach out for help sooner. So reach out to people that are 2 steps ahead of you. Go to their seminars. Don't judge them. Learn from them. They are your best resources. And I built in the dark and alone, banging my head against the wall for too long, and it was very lonely, and it took longer than it needed to. And if you simply go to a few events in the area that you want to have a breakthrough in, you'll be shocked at how fast your growth accelerates and how you build a community and how that empowers you. The other piece of advice that I would give is pay attention to what is causing you friction or angst, or you don't like it, and try to outsource that to somebody who's amazing. I recently hired our friend Evan Carmichael after meeting everybody at the Napa Mastermind Group. And I almost didn't hire him because I was kind of embarrassed to have him look at our YouTube channel.
I know the
because
feeling
our
personally.
YouTube channel has been kind of like just post it, sort of like the newsletter. I don't know what to do over there, just post it. And he looked at it, and it was kind of embarrassing to have him walk us through all the basics that weren't getting done and all the buttons that needed to be switched on. And a month into it, we've like 10x'd our growth. Because I asked for help in an area where I don't have expertise. Yeah. And so don't be stupid like I was. Yeah, reach out before you're ready. Spend money before you think you should. And offload the stuff that you don't like to somebody who knows what the hell they're doing.
Okay, so you have all of the same insecurities and fears and doubts, like wants the projects to work and are afraid that it's not going to work out. So that is super relatable. But what then makes the difference? Like, if Mel Robbins struggles with all the things that average human struggles with, how do you then go on to achieve extraordinary success when most people don't?
So there is probably a multi-layered answer. So I'll number it as I go along. I think that number one, work ethic. I'll outwork anybody. I know that the secret to success is not getting it right. It's actually getting after it until you get it done. And so work ethic, work ethic, work ethic. Anything is possible if you are willing to give up your timeline and you're willing to put your head down and put the work in. The second thing is I know that failure and screw ups are a massive part of paving the road to success. Like, I'm not a lucky person that can just study stuff and implement it and then it all works out. I have this deeply personal process that everybody shares, by the way, of studying everybody who does it really well and then implementing their best practices and then tweaking it so that it feels right. And so failures, screw ups, detours, all of it is part of the road to success. The third thing is, and I write about actually all of this stuff in the High Five Habit. There is this mindset trick that I created that is an entire chapter in the High Five Habit that I created when I was launching the 5-Second Rule book, which the hardcover book was a huge failure, believe it or not. And when we launched the hardcover, it originally, the bottom line is that when I launched the hardcover, Evan, the hardcover was not available for sale when my marketing kicked off. Like there was a screw up with Amazon. I started marketing. I told everybody to go buy it and it read as out of stock. Couldn't even pre-order it. It was like out of stock. Huge mix up on my part. I was a self-published author. And as my attitude was going down the drain, I literally started saying this thing to myself on repeat. And everybody, you should just steal this. It's like chapter 13 in the book. This moment is preparing me. This moment is preparing me. This moment is preparing me for something amazing that hasn't happened yet. And every single thing in my life that has been a struggle or a hardship or a heartbreak or anything, even losing people I love to the disease of hopelessness and addiction, those moments of going through tremendous grief and heartache prepared me to help other people to do it. And so when you can start to ground yourself in this idea that I never really liked, by the way, Evan, that whole phrase, life is happening for me, because there's a lot of that I don't want it. I don't believe it's for me. But there's something about tweaking it like this is preparing me. It allows me to take control of a situation I don't like, I didn't want, I didn't plan for, it's not what I deserve. But if it's preparing me for something, it flips my mindset into this attitude that allows me to endure it and allows me to have perspective that someday I will look back on it and understand the wisdom that I gained from it. And so, the failure of the hardcover with the 5-second rule prepared me for something all right. It introduced me to my business model that has a huge partnership with Audible. Like the 5-second rule, because of the failure of the hardcover, became the most sold and listened to audiobook of the year of all of 2017 and opened up a whole new business model. And, which by the way is still bearing out, everybody, because as the book sells out around the world, it's the audiobook. Like we were the number one selling audiobook in the world last week, number 2 selling title on Amazon because of the audiobook. And so there's a whole new business model I learned. And so you need to understand that every failure that you have, everybody, it is actually preparing you for something else. That's number 3, that sort of attitude. The other thing, honestly, is I've been successful in spite of myself, Evan, because it's only since learning the High Five Habit that I have been able to truly reset my default thinking and become a person whose default is to cheer for herself. Do I have insecurities? Yes. Do I have self-doubts? Yes. But the one thing I don't do anymore is I do not beat the hell out of myself anymore. You see, even all those years, everybody, when my speaking career was taking off, I was literally my biggest critic. It was never enough. It was, well, I kind of, even though the audience is giving me a standing ovation and the clients just hired me to do 7 more events, Evan, I'm like, well, God, I really screwed up minute 43. I really blew it that time. Like, I was relentless with myself. And there's a difference, everybody, between having a level of excellence in what you do and high standards, which I know Evan has a level of excellence in what he does. And he also marries his process with excellence. But that's very different than relentless self-criticism. You know what I mean? And what happens with relentless self-criticism, self-hatred, self-doubt, all of that beatdown is that, number one, you slow down your progress. Number two, you miss opportunities. Number three, you lose inspiration and motivation because everything is a grind. Number four, you have no joy in what you're doing because you are singularly focused on finding stuff that's not going right. And number five, you literally will never be happy and content because you're not allowing yourself to celebrate and empower yourself for all the things you're doing right, which only creates more positive momentum. And it was the high 5 habit, something I created by mistake in April of 2020, that completely changed my habits, my attitude. The reason why this is the most successful thing I've ever done is because I'm different. Using the high 5 habit, I've asked for help. I've gotten out of the insecurity of needing to do it all myself. I'm enjoying the process of it, even though it's kind of a show behind the scenes. Like, this is just the greatest gift in the world because it changes how I experience my life. And that's the biggest thing, everybody. That's the final takeaway in terms of success and why most of you don't have the success you deserve, because you're too hard on yourself. You're focused on what's not working instead of celebrating what is. You're beating the hell out of yourself every day, which is demotivating. If you want to be more successful than you could ever imagine, you must read the high 5 habit. You must start to put these practices in place. You must start to see the good. You must start to flip your attitude when it's going down. And you must be able to use the tools in here to become somebody that is supportive, encouraging of yourself.
Okay.
So if you stand every morning and can't stare at yourself because you think you're worthless or whatever, and let's say you oversleep and you missed a dentist appointment. Who hasn't done that, right? Yeah. I certainly have. Yeah. If you're somebody that has good self-esteem, you go, oh, shoot, I missed the dentist appointment. I'm going to have to pay the $25 fee. I guess I'll just reschedule it, right? Mm-hmm. If you're somebody who has really low self-esteem, you go, see, you can't do anything right. You can't make it to the dentist. Everything in your life becomes evidence that you're a piece of shit. Everything in your life becomes evidence that you are doing things wrong. You see, the difference between me having done all this work on myself, therapy, EMDR, psychedelic guided therapy sessions, all of the high 5 habits, learning how to regulate my nervous system, dealing with childhood trauma. The difference between where I am now and where I used to be is I screw up shit all the time. I don't hook you're a piece of shit to it anymore. I'm able to allow myself to screw up and go, good people do have bad days. I'm doing my best.
Right.
I'll just pay the $25 and reschedule.
Right. And you don't hold on to it.
Correct.
Right.
Hold on to it. Most of us pour it all over ourselves. We just bathe in it. Mm-hmm. And so meaningful mantras, I should have called them pathetic mantras, you're right, are literally 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, interrupt that thought. I'm a bad person. Mm-hmm. I screw everything up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about it. And then you can insert something like, hey, I'm doing the best I can and I'm getting better every day. Hey, doing the best I can. I'm good. That's not exactly like, woo, we're going to run the Ironman kind of talk. But meaningful talk is something you can believe.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I like that. Again, and then,
I can see your wheels turning. You're like, oh my God.
I am, because because it's so refreshing, and I really enjoy when people actually give you the hows, not just this is why it's happening, and go on and on and on. But these are like all, and this is in this book and in your other book, tangible. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, you want to get your mental health in order, and you want to have better self-worth and self-love. Here's what you do. Stop sleeping with your phone so it's not next to you when you wake up. That way, when you wake up, you'll get out of bed and you won't look at social media.
Where do you put the phone? Do you keep it downstairs?
I charge it in my bathroom.
You do? Okay. So,
yeah.
And what time are you off? What time are you off the phone at night?
Depends on the day. I mean, I don't do what's called the gray zone. So the reason why people are so screwed up right now is because you're living in what psychologists call the gray zone, which is you're never not working, which is your phone.
That's true.
And never not, like it's always on you. And so you never have a break, ever.
That's true.
And there's no separation between work and life. And your life, like there's not going to be balance, but there can be harmony and there can be boundaries. And so one of the things that I have that's really helped me, because I love what I do for a living. it doesn't even feel like work.
Right.
I could be on my phone 24 hours a day. I'd never see my husband or my children, but I could be on my phone 24 hours a day. I have a basket in the kitchen. So I use a lot of environmental triggers to help me cheat good behavior. So an example of an environmental trigger is a basket in the kitchen that has plugs at it. So when I get home, I put my phone in the kitchen. A lot of times you can't reach me because it's sitting in the basket. It's not on me.
Right. You can't see it.
Correct.
It's in the basket.
Correct. So keeping it away from you is really important, because here's the thing. You're never going to be successful if you're on your phone 24/7. Never. You're going to always be busy and mistake it for success. If you want to be wildly successful, you better get strategic and smart. And it is not smart to let this thing use you. You need to be the one using it. And so I put it in the basket in the kitchen when I'm home, because we don't have phones when we're having a family dinner. And it would, I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. And thank you.
You're welcome.
I think the phone has been one of our biggest fights.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just being distracted and not present with each other. So that's helped a lot. When I go to bed, it's in the bathroom. And for everybody that's worried because you're a single parent or you've got a job that you work a shift that you need to be available, no problem. Tell people, call me if you need me, and leave the ringer on. But tell them if you text me, I'm not going to respond. It's amazing. People will text you in the middle of the night, but they won't call you unless it's an emergency. So that way you ensure that you get a good night's sleep, because you're not sitting there going to bed watching it or scrolling through it. Then when you wake up and the alarm rings, you have to get out of bed because it's in the bathroom. When you walk toward the bathroom, you have enough presence now to know that you're going to turn it off and flip it over. And now you've got a fighting chance to have the first 30 minutes of the day be for you. You're going to brush your teeth. You're going to stand in front of the mirror, and you're going to have a moment with yourself where you're going to think about who you're going to be today. You're going to think about what's important to you today. And then you're going to raise your hand and you're going to high five yourself. And the other thing that happens, and why this is so powerful, in addition to the subconscious programming, I just spent a ton of time with Dr. Daniel Amen, one of the world's leading experts.
He was
as you
on
know.
here. Yep.
And he said he was so excited about the high five habit, not only because of all the stuff with neurobics, which is marrying neuroscience and neural pathways with aerobic activity. It's the fastest way to build new neural pathways, by the way. He was also super excited about it because when you cross a finish line, you raise your hands in the air. When the band that you love comes out, you raise your hands in the air. When you go to high five or double high five somebody, you raise your hands in the air. When you pat somebody on the back, you lift your arms in the air. The lifting, whether it's a high five or a fist bump or whatever, is coded into your nervous system as a positive rush. Remember how we talked about that anxiety rush?
Yes.
This is a positive energy force.
Right.
And so one of the reasons why it feels good, if you can push through the fact that it feels weird and you try it for more than 5 days, is because your nervous system starts to jump in. The other thing that happens is you get a drip of dopamine.
Yeah.
And that is why you suddenly feel a little lighter. You feel a little boost in your mood. You feel your shoulders drop. You feel like, okay, my life sucks right now, but I got this.
Right. And then the whole thing is, if you keep your phone in your bathroom and then you're not allowed to check the phone until you finish, or is it 30 minutes, or just you have to do the high five first?
Do what works for you. Like for me.
Don't you get stuck in the bathroom just checking your emails?
Absolutely not. You know why?
Why?
My mental health and my goals, my finances, my family, my dreams, way more important than what's on that fucking phone.
Right. So you don't check any emails for how long? For 30 minutes, you said?
I try.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
Depends on the day.
Okay.
My husband's up at like 5. I'm like, I'm doing 75 hard right now, so I'm getting up a little bit earlier.
You're doing what?
That challenge 75 hard.
What is that challenge 75 hard?
It's some...
Well, I guess I'm like out in the. I guess I have no idea.
Amy's doing it too. We got roped into it. My husband and my daughter are doing it.
I've heard of it actually, but
it's 75 days. It's very male. Like I've decided I'm going to come up with something called like 21 days easier.
Oh, I think is this the
like
one that Jesse Itzler's doing? No, that's not.
I have no idea.
Okay, no,
but it's like 2 45-minute workouts a day. One has to be outside.
I did hear about this actually.
Gallon of water. You have to stick to a particular diet of your choosing. No alcohol. 10 pages of nonfiction. What else do we have to do?
So you have to do 240.
Workout. Read. Water. Oh, progress photo. And you've got to do it 75 days in a row. And if you miss one day, you're out. You got to go back to 0.
So is it too late to start?
You can start anytime you want. It's not like a thing. It's like a thing you do yourself or with a group.
2 45-minute workouts a day. Can it be anything?
I walk my dog. Check.
For 45
I stretch.
minutes?
Check. Yeah, I'm into winning. Like, I don't know about everybody else, but this is the other thing. I have been like, and the high five habit is not for losers, because we very wildly successful people, we tend to harp on the things going wrong. Mm-hmm. You will have so much more success and more joy and be a better leader if you are able to laser focus and celebrate the things going right.
But how do you teach that, really?
You stand in front of a damn mirror
and you do the high five.
Yes.
So, okay,
I know you do not want to believe it. I know.
I do believe it. I'm going to try. I'm going to join the challenge. How about that?
You can do the 70. Yeah, do the high five challenge. High five challenge. 5 million people.
I am fascinated by how many jobs that you've had.
Oh my God.
And I have to go here because I think it's so important, especially when you talk about being prepared for something, and also the time it takes to build. And I want you to share, because a lot of people are doing a lot of different things right now, trying to figure it out, trying to realign, trying to pivot. We've all heard it. So can we share with people like how many jobs you've had?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I love that you're asking me how many jobs I've had in my lifetime. So I'm 53. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I believe absolutely everything that you do is preparing you for something amazing that's coming. That hasn't happened yet. Everything. Mm-hmm. And almost every job that I've ever had gave me a life lesson that I have used in a very pivotal moment in my life.
Right.
And so let's go through them all, because I come from a very hardworking, working class family.
Right.
Farmers, machinists, bakers, maids. Like, this is my background. Miners, like, this is hard working. This is what we do. Yes, my dad and mom put my dad through medical school, but he's like the first professional in the generations of people that I'm related to. So I started working young. Mm-hmm. So I was a babysitter. There's one. I was a lifeguard. I taught tennis lessons. I would sub on a paper route when kids could have paper routes. I then was a hostess and a busser at a restaurant. I was a short order cook. I was a waitress. I was a bartender. I always worked in college, so I worked at a cafe, and then I became a baker and baked bread on the morning shift. And then I worked for a temp agency after college, and then I got assigned to be a paralegal. And then during the summer, during law school and during law school, I would clerk at like the DA's office or, at a law firm. After law school, I was a public defender in New York City for legal aid doing criminal defense work. That's 15. We're on 15 and I'm only 23.
Wow.
15 jobs. Then I worked for a large law firm in Boston. I hated that job. Then I worked for a digital marketing company, a content company called eMode, morphed into Tickle. Then I worked for another one. Then I got fired from that job and from Bullhorn. This would have been 2000. Then I worked for a digital marketing agency. So now what are we even at? We're at job 19.
Wow.
And I'm 30.
Wow.
And I've got 2 kids.
Wow.
And then I trained to become a life coach. And that was 2001. So I'm now life coaching and working part-time until I have enough money to be able to life coach full-time. I do that for a couple years. And the life coaching has somebody write an article about me. And that leads to me getting a paid position on CNBC to be a commentator. So we're at 21 jobs now. Then I get offered a reality show from Fox that was supposed to be like a business makeover show, like Extreme Business Makeover Show. And that's a whole horror story because they changed the television show to being Makeover the Office to we're going to fire people on national TV. Thankfully, it never aired. Then I lost that job. Chris's restaurant started failing. We were 800 grand in debt. That's when I launched the 5-second rule. So we are now at, where are we even? 27 jobs? 22 jobs? I don't even know where we are at this point. I'm literally in 2008, $800,000 in debt, unemployed because I'm fired from the show from Fox when it doesn't air. I used the 5-second rule to get out of bed in 2008 and I get a job. I beg a former coaching client to give me a part-time gig, helping them with office operations because I need to pay my bills.
Wow.
I auditioned for a Saturday morning radio show because I just thought, okay, I need the $50 and it's on Saturday mornings and I get it. So that show then expands into a weekday show. We're now at 30 jobs.
Wow.
30 jobs. And I am now in 2011. So that would have been 10 years ago. So I'm 43, 30 jobs by the time I'm 43.
Wow.
I then give that TEDx talk, which launches my speaking career. I then, because of my...
If you haven't listened to that, go check it out.
my radio show, that's 5 days a week, wins an award in CNN calls. So suddenly I find myself with a full-time job with CNN as a paid commentator doing legal commentary on some of the biggest social justice cases in this nation's history, from the murder of Trayvon Martin to Freddie Gray to Tamir Rice to Michael Brown to Eric Garner. I was there on television unpacking these issues for anybody watching. It was just an extraordinary experience. And, you know, again, what prepared me for that? Representing people at Legal Aid and understanding being somebody in the system, fighting systematic biases and discrimination every single day as a criminal defense attorney.
Wow.
What it actually means. That prepared me for that moment. Where are we? CNN. I don't even know what time, where we're at. Oh, and the speaking career then takes off and I'm speaking. And then people start to write to me about the 5-second rule. So I write a book. And then I realize I could actually help more people by doing courses. So I start creating courses. And then the book's so successful that Audible comes to us and said, would you produce more audio content? So we start an audio content production division in the company. And then Sony Pictures comes to me and says, would you be willing to host a daytime syndicated talk show? I think we're up to like 36 jobs at this point.
It's amazing.
And I'm 50 years old. And each and everything I've ever done has been a dot on the map of my life, preparing me for something that was coming next.
That's so powerful. And I'm
not done.
I know,
I'm
right?
not done.
She's not done.
I got another 30 jobs in me, at least. At least.
I love that. And I love that you just give yourself permission. And I think that's what you did well in the book, as well as like take us through some of those stories and really allow people to feel that you're going to have times when you feel like a failure, but you're not. It's just preparing you for that next moment. And I think a lot of people need to hear that right now.
Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.